Art and Science of Leadership podcast. We are back again, and I am pleased once again to be joined by someone who's becoming my partner in crime here, Dr. Carly Hunt. So this is now the fourth time that Carly and I are able to go and explore these concepts, the beautiful marriage, if you will, of art and science in the leadership realm, where we discuss neuroscience and psychology. We discuss longstanding empirical traditions and trends of leadership and management of people and performance of people. And as former Division I athletes, as longtime coaches and advisors to leaders and managers, we just have a lot of fun with this, and we hope that you continue to take some value, some application from our conversation. So, Dr. Hunt, great to see you again.
Great to see you, Chris.
So I think we've got a few things that we want to explore in our 15 to 20 minutes or so today. Let's start with the performance game. So you and I, we both deal every day with clients who are focused on higher performance. That could be in the organizational realm, that could be in the competitive athletic realm, and everything in between. And I think you and I both see some commonalities, some trends within some common performance challenges or obstacles, right? In some cases, in the organizational context, it could be imposter syndrome. It could be failure to be clear. In some cases, it could be a lack of emotional intelligence. And we see it. You and I could go on and on, but from your perspective, and in this snapshot in time, what do you see commonly that is holding performance back in your clients, or maybe undermining confidence in what you see in your practice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think a few things come to mind. The first one is broadly our thoughts. So you mentioned imposter syndrome. So our minds, in a way, kind of know bounds, and they tell us all kinds of stories about ourselves and our abilities. And sometimes those stories might not be very helpful, right? Like, I'm an imposter. Everyone will find out one day that I'm not really any good, or I'll probably blow it, or on and on and on, right? And so I think learning skills to relate effectively to those thoughts is huge for performers. And we've talked about a few different ways to do that. And that's something you and I both work with people on, is how do you relate effectively to those thoughts? Maybe it's possible to shift those thoughts in certain ways, or at least not let them dictate what our next action is, right? Because sometimes if we're not aware and working effectively with thoughts, a thought will happen, and then we just kind of automatically act on that thought versus kind of maybe seeing other options, right? Does that resonate with you, Chris?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And I think it's as you have described it before, and that you and I can really relate in a common language, is it's the discipline. It's the ability to be aware of it, and then how can I work on it? How can I not only note and articulate my thoughts, but then use the tools to be able to get my mindset back into that productive place where I am performing. You know what I think about, Carly, is when in some cases where you've got high performers that are accustomed to hitting the mark, and then all of a sudden they go through this trough where, wait a minute, I've fallen short of the goal, or I've fallen short of the objective. And so it almost goes from imposter syndrome to, do I still have it? Did I lose it?
Right.
And once again, it's what can I default to, lean on, to make sure that I can still be that high performer, notwithstanding maybe these couple of instances where I have fallen short. How do I get back
Mm-hmm.
into that productive mindset?
Right. Yeah, I think you gave a really good example there of a common sort of thought trap, as it sometimes is called, that we can fall in when
Mm,
experiencing failure. So your example there is, what if I don't have it anymore? That's
Mhm.
that's what psychologists would sometimes call like a permanent explanation, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm hitting a failure, that means, it's gone, right, forever, right? Which is
Right.
which
Oh,
is not
so true.
probably not true. And in any case, we don't see that, no one knows the future. So it's sort of like it's not factual, right? Versus I'm experiencing this temporary setback. Slumps or difficulties are a natural part of any person's career or journey or whatever you want to call it. And let me focus on what I'm gaining from this and trust that I'm going to continue to work on the things that really matter to me, for example. So
Yeah.
I think having that awareness and that ability to kind of reframe and take a step back is huge. And it ties right into our emotional state, right, too, which is the other challenge I think that a lot of high performers name to me is I just need to get a better handle on my emotions,
Mm,
right? Like,
mm,
and so oftentimes our thoughts, when they're not helpful, can kind of amplify a difficult feeling, like feelings of, sadness or maybe feeling down on ourselves when going through a difficult time. If those
mm.
kind of permanent thoughts, like we were talking about, are really in the forefront, it can make those feelings worse. So I think it's kind of these things all a little bit interrelated. But when it comes to managing feeling states too, leaders are faced with all kinds of situations that are liable to bring up some strong emotion. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a wide variety of emotions. It just is
Right.
about, can we continue to act in line with our values and vision, even if something that's unwanted or uncomfortable is showing up. So it's
Yeah.
again kind of breaking apart that automatic process of like unwanted thing, be that thoughts or feelings, and then my actions.
Yeah.
So I think
This is
that's
this is the stuff, Carly. This is the stuff. I love this because these are the accessible tools and phrases that help us be more aware and help us get back into sync. There's a couple of phrases there that you mentioned that I can't wait to go back and listen to again because they're just helpful not only for me but for all of our executive teams and leaders that we work with. Because boy, that is spot on. I really I love that. And just one of the things that has come up with me just in the last week and a half with clients is be the calmest person in the room, right? Be the calmest person in the room, especially when it comes to that challenging, emotionally driven situation, so that we
mhm,
can have the clear mindset and the clear approach in terms of how we move forward. So this is exactly what I wanted to get after today.
mhm,
Let's use that to go into our topic two. Topic two: effective communication. I would tell you, in my almost 30 years of experience in this realm, it is the through line. It is the most common challenge of leadership and management teams is effective communication, which guess what? It's been the case for 4,000 years in terms of the ability to leverage communication to drive better performance. But is this something that you see? We haven't talked about this yet in terms of communication being part of that equation that helps us to perform better.
yes, absolutely. I see this all the time and talk with folks about this all the time because it's so fundamental. I mean, anything that we do that's great, or it rests on relationships. So
Mhm.
no high achiever gets anywhere on their own, and we're always doing things in groups, and leaders are so often faced with difficult situations and struggle. How can I communicate with this person? And then people on teams that need to express themselves authentically often really struggle to do that. And so I think it's something that's really ubiquitous and very important. And it makes me curious for you, Chris. What are some of the what would you say are some of the most common communication struggles that you see
Mhm.
with your clients?
Yeah. So, number one would probably be the communication of priority and objectives. So, it's clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Clarity of communication is lacking. Number one. I think
Mm-hmm.
number two, Carly, would be failing to listen aggressively and to ask questions. These are
Mhm.
the two unsung heroes of effective communication
Yes.
that I see. And then I
Mhm.
think the third would be, and I reserve the right to change my answer tomorrow, but the third would probably be the alignment on action. Because at the end of the day, I feel that effective communication is what moves people to action, because that's when you know that your communication is effective. Are people
Mm.
moved to the right action? So those are a few of those things. Did those land? Did those resonate at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And I think I'll just comment first on the second one, which is
Mm-hmm.
the importance of aggressive or active listening. And I think we can all think of times in which we're listening to someone and we're already formulating what we're going to say back while they're talking, right? So kind of like listening to respond versus listening to understand. And I think
Mm-hmm.
um, oftentimes we don't learn how even just such simple things like reflecting back in a summary what someone has said and being very tentative and saying, I think I heard such and such. Is that is
Mm-hmm.
that is that consistent with what you're thinking and feeling, right? And kind of
Mm-hmm.
really slowing down and reflecting back, asking open-ended questions. Even saying something so simple as, I think I'm hearing this. Is that how you're feeling about this versus like, well, you're saying X, and it immediately puts people on the defense. So I think there are some great
Absolutely.
simple tools that we can all learn to be more empathic listeners.
No
Certainly.
doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Thank you for that. And it is, and here's the great mystery of the human condition is framing, just framing the comments and framing the words changes the whole dynamic. And
Yes.
yet it's so accessible, and we do not avail ourselves of some of the most basic of tools to be better leaders and managers. It's confounding at times,
Yeah.
um, and maybe some of that confounding is a good jump off point to our third and final topic of the day, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And this acronym is coming up in more and more conversations, in more and more of our reading and our research. And so, help us understand a couple of things. What is it? Number one. Two, why does it matter in the context of leadership and management? And then you and I can go on maybe a little bit of a conversation around, well, what's the accessibility of it in terms of the organizational dynamic? So, Dr. Hunt,
Mhm.
first, what is it?
Yes. So, cognitive behavioral therapy is a widely science backed therapy that essentially focuses on three things: thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and how all three of those things interrelate. So, sometimes you'll see a triangle drawn when trying to explain
Mm-hmm.
what CBT is. And so, all these, all three of those things are areas that we can work on to help that one part of the triangle, but also favorably affect the other parts, right? So, for example, CBT let's start with thoughts because that's where we started off our conversation. So CBT suggests that we practice awareness of what our automatic thoughts are, as it's often
Mm-hmm.
called in CBT, which I think is a really good label for a lot of the thoughts that we have. They just kind of come up, right? We don't choose to have a lot of the thoughts that appear in our minds, and to think of alternative explanations for events, alternative thoughts that are healthier, more helpful to us. And that's a skill that we can all learn. So I think that's a very accessible skill that we can we can bring to organizations just through
Mm-hmm.
like skill building workshops, seminars, things like that. How here are some skills to work with thoughts that might not be helping you be at your
Right.
best, for example. And then the behavior piece. So behaviors, sometimes when we change our thoughts, it can help us have better behaviors, right? So take an exercise example, like, I haven't exercised really that much over the last 5 years. Like, I probably can't get back on the horse, right? That's like a self-defeating thought. So CBT comes in, says what's a healthier thought, and then that can help with behavior. At the same time, we can intervene right with behaviors to start with. So CBT often emphasizes making action plans for,
Mm.
pleasant activities, healthy activities that boost our mental health and ability to be at our best in the workplace.
Mhm.
Um, and then the emotion piece. So different tools to work with strong emotions when they come up, how to be effective, even when emotions that are hard are coming to us. So it's kind of a long-winded explanation that it's a comprehensive treatment that addresses those different areas. I think it's one of the most accessible
Mm.
sort of treatment paradigms out there from the psychology tradition that we can bring to a wide variety of settings, just because of how accessible these concepts are and applicable across a lot of settings.
That's powerful, and very well explained. By the way, not long winded, very helpful. And I think you address both of the first two things, which is what is it and why is it relevant. I mean, clearly in the organizational context, we can absolutely harness better performance through what you just explained. So let me go to what
Mhm.
you said on the tail end there about the accessibility of it. How accessible, how does it get worked into the organizational context? And maybe this is still a burgeoning or novel um, uh, intersection between organizational development, leadership and manager development, and CBT. But what do you see? What do you think in terms of the accessibility within the organizational context?
Yes, I think CBT really lends itself to skill building programs. So I've seen this done in sort of a coping or wellness workshop type of format where
Mhm.
people can come, they can learn these skills, they can think about ways to apply them at work in their lives, and it can be sort of a way in which an organization or a team like works together to build
Mhm.
um, some of these skills. So I think the group format can be really helpful. And I think that there are other ways that people can learn about these topics,
Mhm.
independently through reading or the wide variety of resources that we have now online. I think leaders themselves can learn these skills and model these skills to others, and it can give them some information to help better lead people because they can be
Mhm.
sort of maybe listening for things that they might not have been listening for, or they might feel like they might sort of perceive more importance of kind of workplace culture and
Mhm.
supporting, let's say, healthy behavior engagement or sort of creating more opportunities for wellness on their teams, kind of seeing how
Yeah.
powerful it is in terms of performance and performance related issues, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and it's that's what's exciting about the convergence of the social and behavioral science with the psychology and the neuroscience, because these are now tools. These are bodies of academic study and research, and now good hard data that supports better cognitive performance, better emotional performance, better well-being. And let's not forget, I never want this to be a lost point, which is we're trying to develop better leaders and managers to achieve the objective, right? Which is the mission and the purpose and the performance of the organization. These are not
Mm-hmm.
mutually exclusive. They're absolutely hand in hand. And I think that's where this excitement in this burgeoning, growing area, this accessible area is where we need to focus more time and attention. And I know you and I will. So, Dr. Hunt, I think once again we've delivered some value here. I think we've delivered some opportunities for people to be critically thinking, and maybe even some real application from our time together today. So, Dr. Hunt, thank you as always. I can't wait to do this again.
Yeah, my pleasure, Chris. Thank you.